Hi everyone, let's talk about High Rise, which I just did a full solo playthrough for, and when it was back on Kickstarter, I did a two-player playthrough for. It doesn't look as lovely as this, but the gameplay, you'll get it. Anyway, so I've done first impressions for the original game, which is, the gameplay has stayed largely the same, so this kind of impressions for the final version and the solo mode. And the final version, yeah, if you haven't seen that prototype playthrough, just go and have a look at it. The comparison is amazing, isn't it? From inkjet printed pieces to this. This is beautiful, and a lot of the design choices that were made along the way, based on the different Kickstarters. Originally it was going to be all of these very very beautiful 3D printed floors that you would end up making the skyscrapers out of, and then the more floors that you use, the higher they would be, and then it had to change to these standees, which are a beautiful solution. I kind of messed up the configuration of everything to make it look nice on the static camera, but when you've got everything all laid out all diagonally here, and it's immediately apparent what the tallest building around is, it looks beautiful as you are building all of this stuff up, and as it all gets replaced, it's getting higher and higher and higher. It just works fantastically. The spires with the triple cardboard that slot onto the top of the normal pieces work beautifully. All of it is just top notch, and I know that there is an upgrade pack, which I'm going to have to find actually, where you can get plastic resources and wooden bases for the buildings and more things, but just the stuff that comes in the base box is a ton of variability. This was apparent back when it was in prototype form, that we've got for each of the sections, we've got the 3 that come out, but we've also got loads that didn't get used, and you're just going to use a combination of these 3, and that's the same for all 5 of the districts in the game. And then the different bonuses that will come out will make a difference as well. But the combination of all of this stuff together can make a wildly different game in terms of the opportunities for you to be able to lose corruption, or earn extra points, or get extra income off people landing on your buildings, which will put them off taking those spaces. As I probably went into more in the original first impressions, it's such a fantastic game. The time track works brilliantly well, as it has in things like Glenmore and Craft Bargain, where the person in last place takes the next turn, so you could go anywhere you like, but the more you miss out, the more you're potentially giving the other players, extra turns before you catch up again, and you are potentially missing out on all of these actions as well. But is it worth it to get what you really want? It works beautifully here, as well as the competition for the tallest building. It's full of competition, but no negative interaction. When you are demolishing someone else's building, if it's the smallest building in there, it probably wasn't eligible. Well, in 2030, it would have been eligible for 3rd place in the running, but they are getting 2 floors as compensation, to the point where it's not always a bad idea to just demolish your own building, because you're going to get a nice little stock of building materials to maybe keep that going. It's brilliant for escalation, for the requirements for the blueprints drive the skyscrapers reaching higher and higher, even though the resources available don't necessarily get any more plentiful. The bonuses do get stronger as the game goes on, but the action spaces on the board don't change. So you have to think about, are you going to just try and get everything you can out as early as possible, or are you going to bide your time and build up resources and go for the taller skyscrapers and the better bonuses and things? It just works beautifully. It's yeah, as I mentioned, it's so gorgeous and so well laid out. There's so much consideration gone in for colorblind players with the player colors. The colours on the resources all have shapes on them. The colours on the districts on the board, that I didn't realise this until I saw Gil mention it on Board Game Geek, that not only are the districts all different colours, but all of the buildings in those districts are different shapes as well. And there are roads going off the board that also, delineate the different sections as well. So much thought has been put into every aspect of the components of the game, and it works beautifully. The solo game is kind of an extension of if you played it 2-player, where you have a neutral mogul. That in the 2-player game, it worked fantastically there. That's what my original playthrough was for, that you alternate control of this neutral mogul, and you can either just move it to the next zone, the first space in the next zone in front of the leading player, or you can take a corruption to basically take an extra turn, send it to, you can only send it one district, one neighborhood ahead, but you get the effects of the space that it went to. So if you're willing to, it's an extra element to the corruption part of the game, which is fantastic in its own right, that you can get much more powerful actions or get to, there's 2 construction spaces, but the second one, to be able to take that, you're going to need to take some corruption. And then it's not necessarily, in the multiplayer game, it's not necessarily about avoiding corruption altogether. You just don't want to have the most of it, or the most by a big margin. If the other player's going for a load of corruption, you're free to take a fair bit before it's really going to affect you. And yeah, in the solo game, both of them are neutral moguls, so you've got that decision all the time of, I do want an extraction, or I don't want them to go into that space, or I don't want them to go ahead and take the bonuses away from me. You have to be the first to cross the bonus threshold to qualify for them, and they're on display, so you see what it's going to be from a choice of 6 rather than just the 2 that are on the space, or the 1 tile and the printed bonus that's already on there. And if you're picking random floors, you're seeing a selection of what's there, so you've got a bit more knowledge, you've got a bit of control, potentially a lot of control over what the solo neutral players do, but it's all at the cost of corruption. And here you have that corruption limit that, if you don't get to the construction spaces first, it's just completely random which ones get blocked off and what your corruption limit is going to be for the end of the round. But then at the same time, you building the tallest buildings, which of course you want to do, this is high rise, I want the highest rise, then you are, by doing that, you are limiting the corruption bonus, because the biggest buildings have the biggest limits on them. So by you constructing those first and getting there first, you are restricting the potential for your corruption scope. You're going to have to limit yourself to the point where it's not about what are the other people doing. It's about how can I get as much done as I want to without gaining too much corruption. How can I leverage these different the push and pull of the corruption, because there is always lose corruption. There's a space just printed on the board. There are the stop spaces. If you get there first or second, then you're going to lose some corruption. There is another side of the board where that's going to be a little bit different. And there are bonus spaces, especially in 2030, I don't know if there are any before then, where you can lose corruption as well. So it's about leveraging that to try and come out on top, really, because it's can potentially, if you go for a load of corruption actions, you are going to just find yourself, for every space you are over your limit, you lose 3 points. So if you've even gotten kind of midway on the corruption track to like 20 spaces or something, then yeah, that's going to lose you a massive amount of points by the end of the game. So yeah, the solo works fantastically. You are trying to beat a score, you're trying to beat your own score, but the process of the neutral moguls and still juggling all of this different stuff. When you can construct any way you like, as long as you take a corruption. You can send the neutral players to so many places as long as you take a corruption. It's all about weighing all of this stuff up, and while the neutral players aren't really doing anything, they are predictable in what they are going to construct. You can see in their stack what they're going to put where. That just kind of guides you in directions. It doesn't give you a massive advantage, because it's still a difficult and very satisfying puzzle to try and work out, and I just absolutely love it. It's but I'm not going to keep evangelizing. Hopefully you saw the playthrough for yourself and decided whether or not you would like to try it out. If you want to see more playthroughs, there's hundreds on this channel. You could go and watch the playthrough for the networks. Is that on the screen somewhere? Might just be off the screen. Another Gilhover game, which is also absolutely fantastic about running TV stations. Anyway, I am going to do some more playthroughs now. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you for the next game. Bye, everyone.